Hello and welcome. Here's the big picture out of Pakistan this evening. Former cricket star Imran Khan's party, the PTI, is now officially the winner of Pakistan's historic third consecutive election of a civilian government. After 2 days of vote count, the Election Commission of Pakistan has announced that Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party won 114 of the 259 seats for which votes had been counted in the National Assembly. Without an absolute majority, though, Imran Khan must form a coalition government. Nawaz Sharif's Pakistan Muslim League has won 63 of these seats. Sharif has rejected the results, charging widespread fraud and manipulation. But the Election Commission says no complaint has yet been received, apart from requests for recounts.
मुल्क के तूलो अर्ज में आम इंतखाबात पुरअमन और पुरजोश माहौल में मुनक्कद हुए। इलेक्शन की कंडक्ट के दौरान जो सिक्योरिटी फराहम की गई फौज की तरफ से वो मिसाली रही। उस सिक्योरिटी के दौरान जो फौज के जवानों का पोलिंग स्टेशन के अंदर रवैया था वो मिसाली रहा। हमें कतई कोई उसकी शिकायत मौसूल नहीं हुई और हम इसके लिए पाकिस्तान फौज के शुक्रगुजार हैं।
All right, joining me live is S.Y. Qureshi, an election observer and a former Chief Election Commissioner of India. Mr. Qureshi, thank you so much for making time to be on your story. My first question to you is, were the elections in Pakistan free and fair?
I think the election in Pakistan have been rated very transparent and very fair by the European Commission, by the Commonwealth Observation Mission and the diplomatic community also. I am representing the Commonwealth delegation. We went to 7-8 cities and I must have seen personally about 70-75 booths, and we found everything in order. We particularly talked to the polling agents of political parties, and nowhere, I must have met about 200 plus, and not one place did they make any complaint. We probed and we questioned them whether everything was going fine, and they said everything was fine. So considering all that, there was a general enthusiasm of the people and the party agents, we saw nothing adverse at all.
But Mr.
Except,
Qureshi,
there were complaints before before the election. We had met political parties, we had met civil society, we had met media. Everybody was commenting about the deployment of the large army inside and outside the polling booth. So we were very particular, we were conscious of that. We wanted to keep an eye on it and we want to investigate that. But we found that although the troops were present inside the booth and outside, but they were not intimidating, they were not interfering, and they were just there giving a sense of security to the people, which we were told that security of this scale has been deployed because of a terrorist incident in the recent past. As you are aware, so since the terrorists were targeting elections, this number of security was required, and it instilled a sense of confidence among the people, as we could see. And they did not one place did we see any interference from them. Presiding officer was the boss, and he was calling the shots.
But Mr. Qureshi, many parties, including the PMLN of Nawaz Sharif, the PPP of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, many of them have accused that the elections were rigged. So how do you view those allegations specifically?
We have been hearing now for the last couple of days about rigging, but probably they are talking more about the pre-poll, what they call pre-poll rigging. Now, pre-poll rigging, and then when we wanted to know the details of that rigging, we were told that many candidates of the opposition parties were poached and they were made to resign and join other party. Well, that is the kind of thing we call political engineering and not actually rigging. Now, political alignments keep changing. How do we know that the people who change parties did it for voluntarily or for the consideration? That's something which is impossible to prove. And that happens everywhere. You know, people may change their political loyalty. What was the consideration? If they did it under pressure, nobody will ever know. If they did it for temptation, that is a very common phenomenon everywhere, even in India, isn't it?
Indeed. And Mr. Qureshi, what's the difference between the elections in Pakistan and, say, in India? You've been a former CEC of India. In your estimation, what are the differences between Pakistan and the Indian elections?
There are quite a few. For one, we have the EVMs, which they don't. They use ballot papers, which of course is a little more the cumbersome procedure, which we had abandoned about 20 years ago. And then the counting is done at the polling station itself immediately after the poll, which we used to do earlier once upon a time, but we abandoned, and we will never change that. What we do is much better, because you know some of the complaints which are now being raised, that the counting was manipulated and it was not transparent and agents were thrown out. We did not see any agent thrown out of the counting. Maybe in some places, even if it happened, guarding so many 85,000 polling stations is a lot more difficult than counting a few thousand counting centers. So same day counting, I don't think it really helped. After all, it is 48 hours since the poll finished and the results are still coming in. So we do the counting after 3 days, and within 4 or 5 hours the nation knows the result, which is 10-20 times bigger than in Pakistan. And we have a much better and well-oiled machinery, much more experience, and a lot more smooth election.
Let's talk a bit about this whole concept of one nation, one poll. Now, Pakistan has simultaneous elections, both federal and provincial elections. Why can't India have simultaneous polls, Mr. Qureshi?
Yes, India is debating that. India is very seriously debating it, why it should not or why it should have. I'm sure some consensus will emerge. I was very curious to see how it works in Pakistan. I've seen it, of course, in some other countries, like in Kenya. In Kenya, there are 7 elections at the same time. Here, there were only 2. Unfortunately, the place where I was deployed, which was in Islamabad, it doesn't have a provincial assembly. Therefore, there was only 1 election, which is the National Assembly. Then I chose to go to Rawalpindi, because that is where the 2 elections were happening. But unfortunately, there the National Assembly election was postponed because somebody was disqualified by the court. So there also we could see only 1. But from the reports which we got from our colleagues, that that process of simultaneous election went on smoothly. Only in a couple of places they saw that the green ballot of the National Assembly was found in the wrong box of the Provincial Assembly, and that of course was taken care of. But for that it was quite smooth, and I think India should seriously debate this.
Right. In conclusion, Mr. Qureshi, it's being reported that a large number of women came out to vote in both Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces. Is it correct?
Yes, they came out in very good numbers. In fact, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, initially, last year, in the last election, there were places where not one woman was allowed to come out. And new election law of 2017 provides that wherever the voter turnout of women is less than 10% of the votes polled, the election commission will annul that election altogether. So I think this is a good measure, and it worked, and women came out in very large numbers. Their enthusiasm was worth seeing. They participated very, very actively, and it was very nice to see. There are some other provisions also. Unlike India, in Pakistan, there are some seats are reserved, 60 seats are reserved for women, and all political parties were bound to put up at least 5% candidates, and even Islamic parties put up women candidates also. I think this was something positive for empowerment of women.
Right. On that note, Mr. Qureshi, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. Appreciate it. suffered a record loss of $120 billion in a single day. Yes, you heard it correct. $120 billion. That's more than the GDP of some countries. Now, it's the biggest single-day loss for any company in the US stock markets. In other words, the highest ever loss made by any company. After Facebook presented its second quarter report, its shares were down by more than 19%. Facebook lost around $120 billion in its market value. It's the biggest one-day market cap loss by any company in the history of the US markets. The market value of Facebook on Wednesday was at $630 billion, but after losing $119 billion, that figure came down to $510 billion by Thursday's close. After the biggest one-day slide, around $17 billion were lost from founder Mark Zuckerberg's net worth. Facebook earned a revenue of $13.23 billion. The market analysts had projected it to cross $13.36 billion. Wall Street had expected the tech giant to cross 1.49 billion global daily active users, but it could manage to touch only 1.47 billion users in this quarter. The internet firm has reported that daily active users rates were up 11% year-on-year basis for this quarter, but this figure did not live up to the expectations of analysts as well. Now, this rise somehow was supported by the user data of the Indo-Pacific region led by India, Indonesia and others. Looks like people in the Indo-Pacific region might still believe in Facebook's capacity to protect their data. But Facebook's user base in Europe has been declining since the Cambridge Analytica scandal and the introduction of the General Data Protection Regulation in the European Union. The user base in Europe reported by the company is 279 million, 0.4 million less than what Wall Street had expected. But the average revenue per user also was on the lower side. The company earned $5.97 per user globally. Surprisingly, Facebook had lost the earnings from advertisements. The Facebook had $13.04 billion of advertisements. Markets had projected it at $13.16 billion. Now take a look at some of the biggest losses in a single day in the US stock markets. Right, so there you go. Facebook, Intel, Microsoft, Apple and ExxonMobil. Right, moving on, Facebook's chief financial officer David Weiner has said that the company will continue its focus on privacy and will make it better. Some media analysts believe that the company will bounce back in the next quarter. Let's compare the $120 billion rout in market cap of Facebook with the GDP of some countries. The United States has a GDP of $19,390 billion, while the second largest economy in the world, China's GDP, is $12,014 billion. Japan has an annual GDP of $4,872 billion, and India's GDP is $2,611 billion, or $2 trillion. Pakistan's GDP is $303.993 billion, while data shows Bangladesh's GDP to be $261.374 billion. Kuwait has a GDP of $120 million, while the Ukraine's GDP is $109.321 billion. Ecuador has reported a $102.311 billion GDP, while the GDP of Sri Lanka is $87.591 billion. Moving on, figures from Oman show a $74.274 billion GDP, while Myanmar has a GDP of $66.537 billion. Botswana's annual GDP is $17.168 billion, while the GDP of Afghanistan is just $0.0262 billion. And finally, Zimbabwe's GDP is $0.0219 billion. Now, not just the stock market that is giving Facebook the jitters, its users now seem to be moving away from Facebook itself. The social media platform that still remains the core business of Facebook, the company is losing teenage users, one of its most important demographic. Now, a study carried out by Pew Research Center found that just 51% of teenagers between 13 and 17 in the US use Facebook. The number of users have dropped by 20% in 2 years. The teenagers are now turning to other platforms like YouTube, Instagram and Snapchat. Back in February, a similar study carried out by a market research company made similar claims. It claimed that Facebook's American user base in the 12 to 17 age category declined by nearly 10% in 2017. The study further claimed that Facebook will lose more than 2 million American users under the age of 25 this year alone. Now, it could be one of the greatest ironies of the times we live in. US President Donald Trump's slogan is "Make America Great Again," and he is getting banners with his slogan made for the campaigning for his second term. But as it turns out, the flags are made in China and they could get hit by the trade war that Trump has started with Beijing.
Keep America great. That's the slogan for Donald Trump's 2020 re-election campaign. While the next election in America is still a couple of years away, preparations are on in full swing. Banners and flags in red, white and blue are being printed in large numbers, not in America, but in China. This factory in China's Anhui province has bagged the contract from the Trump campaign. These flags come for cheap. They cost about $1 a piece. Once they are out from the printer, a team of skilled workers on sewing machines give finishing touches to it. The Trump campaign has placed large orders for its promotional material. By engaging a factory in China, the Trump campaign saves a considerable amount of money. But Trump's own tariff war could hurt his supply of campaign material. The general manager of this factory in China says she may not be able to accept more orders in the future.
Personally, this is my own feeling, but if Trump continues to demand tariff increases, as he has been doing, or he continues to agree with those who are against China, I definitely would not be able to accept more orders. That's because everyone can have a patriotic heart. So we won't let him improve his own economy, while us Chinese just shoot ourselves in the foot.
The Trump administration has slapped tariffs on $34 billion worth of goods from China. The American president has threatened to slap tariffs on more products. Such a move could affect all of China's exports to America, including his campaign flags. But Chinese workers are not losing their sleep over the trade war.
What I'm making here now is a Trump banner. I know that he's the US president. Every day we must produce over 1,000 of these. We've already made so many batches of them. I know that Trump's tariffs targeting China will have some effect, but we are not worried at all since we are producing foreign flags every single day.
The US president campaign's decision to engage a company in China presents a rather interesting paradox. Trump's re-election campaign had promised to only buy American. One can only assume that Trump will have a lot more questions to answer if he runs again for the presidency. Bureau Report, WION.